In this episode, let's work on the insert command for API, as well as to set up Swagger for automatically launching when the API launches. Now, this video is part of a series dedicated to developing C# applications on Linux. Along the way, we'll get a better knowledge of how Linux works and how to make our apps truly cross-platform. If you haven't already subscribed, I encourage you to do so today. That way keep up to date with new episodes as they come out. And if you're looking for even more .NET, SQL, and API training, go to iamtimcorey.com. That's what funds this free content. Okay, let's switch over to Linux, and here I have our API service open. Quick note, during the recording of the series, in fact, just recently, VS Code has updated how, actually the C# Dev Kit has updated how VS Code works. And so now, instead of using Solution Explorer, which if you open this now, doesn't look the same as it used to, we use the actual normal view here instead of the Solution Explorer. So the normal view, like you would for any other VS Code project, is how we're going to use from now on with the C# Dev Kit. You can still right-click on your projects and say, for example, add NuGet package. You can still click on the solution, or the project itself and see all the packages, etc. So still all works the same way. They just consolidate it back into the normal view instead of having a separate view just for C# projects. Okay, so in program.cs, this is where we're going to work today. What we're going to do is we're going to add an insert. Now we already have, let's go to our SQL Server. Let's open up our TicketDB and go to Programmability Store Procedures. We have the insert command. And in here, if we open up parameters, we'll see we're looking for title, description, and priority. So that's what we're going to be looking for, is executing that insert command. We already have our get and our get one. Let's just create a new one by hand. So we're going to say, and actually before we do, let's create our model for this. So notice we have these three parameters: ticket title, ticket description, and priority. 3 values. So what I'm going to do is right down below the run. This is not what I would do for a large project, but this is not a large project. This is a small project. And one of the things you have to realize when you're building out applications is that you need to make your code work and your design work for the size project you're building. Meaning you shouldn't have 30 files in this project, because this project's way too small for that. And what it does is it creates confusion, difficulty, and debugging when you don't need that. So we're just going to put right down here our records. So public record, ticket, insert record. And for this record, we're going to have a string ticket title, string ticket description, and int priority. Now, if that sounds familiar, that's because it matches up ticket title, ticket description, and priority. Now, you may be saying, why are we creating a separate model for this? We already have a model that has those things in it. Sure, it has other properties, but it has those in it. This is one of those things that people get caught up on when they think about dry, and they say, hey, I don't want to repeat myself, therefore I'm not going to create a different model. Models have different purposes. So even if they look identical, they're probably not. So I would encourage you not to get caught up in trying to consolidate down and having less of these. Have the ones you need. So in this case, and actually I should spell insert with a T, how about that? To get insert record. So this is going to be for inserting records. So these are the 3 things I need. Okay, so we have our model. Now we can come up here and create we can collapse this down here. Actually, let's leave that open for an example, but we're going to say app.map post. So it's getting a post command. If you don't know the HTTP verbs, I encourage you to read over and at least learn the 5 basic ones. We'll be using 4 in this course, but there's get, post, put, patch, and delete. So we're going to be using the get, post, put, and delete. We're going to use patch. So the difference between patch and put are both for updating, but put is for basically updating the entire record, whereas patch updates a part of the record, like maybe 1 or 2 fields. So for this, we're going to do a post, which is an insert command. So /API/tickets, and we're going to mark this as async. And we'll say SQL data access, or we call it, SQL data access. Not sure why the IntelliSense didn't find that. That's okay. And then we'll do our arrow function, and then put our semicolon at the end. Okay, so there is the basics of, we need one more thing, and that is the ticket insert record. So ticket insert record, and we'll call this ticket. Okay, so we're going to call this, we're going to create a new ticket. So I want to say await SQL dot save data async. So that's our SQL data access, and I'm going to pass into this my dbo.sp tickets _ insert. And then for the data, I'm going to pass in ticket and then ticket DB. Okay, so the data I'm passing in is, the parameter is actually this this insert record. Okay, this ticket insert record, which, since it matches up property for property, I don't have to do anything else. Now, this insert command I can be done right now, and that will return, I believe it returns a 200 saying it's done or okay, but I don't really love that because of the fact that, are we expecting data back? Are we not expecting data back? And this does depend on your API. Typically what I'd probably do is I would probably modify my store procedure to get back the either the whole record or at least the ID of the record that was just created, and send that back and say, hey, here's the ID that was just created, and here is the path to look that ID up, the /API/tickets/ ID number. That way you can do a get command and get that same record right away. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, hey, it's inserted. I'm going to return a no content. But I want to follow the same pattern we did right here, where we are saying async task of, and then results will be I'm getting some weird errors here today. I'm not sure why. I have to restart Visual Studio Code. But we're going to say no content, and we're also going to say validation problem. Okay, so that's the 2 things I want to return as possibilities, which means that down here I can say return typed results dot no content. Now, don't worry about the validation problem yet. We're going to wait to return that until after we make sure that this works. So let's, in fact, I'm going to restart Visual Studio Code just in case there is a problem. The cool thing is restarting it takes so little time that I don't want to see a survey. I don't want to install a Docker endpoint yet. Okay, so with this set up, I want to come down here to run debug. It's probably going to make me copy that code, but let's see. Waiting for it to run. Nope, no code needed this time. Okay, so my API service is running. If I click on this, I go to the the page, I have to go to /swagger. We're going to fix this in a minute. And now I have a post command. So if I say try it out, and let's say test ticket, and we're going to say test description, and the priority is 3. And I hit execute. I get back the 204, which is the no content. So it completed successfully, but there was no content. Now I can come up here to my /tickets and try it out, execute, and we can see here test tickets right here, date created, priority, etc. Now, I do want you to notice one thing real quick. ID number 1, ID number 2, ID number 3, ID number 1007. Now I have worked in this database a little bit to make sure it was working, so I created a couple records and deleted them. But it jumped by 1,000. And some people freak out, want to adjust this or fix this. There's nothing to fix. In fact, this is a good thing. What happens is SQL Server, when it is shut down unexpectedly, and it doesn't know for sure that it has written all the records. So what happens with SQL Server, real briefly, is it writes your data to basically a text file. And then it takes that text and puts it into the database. So there are times when before that file can get put into the database, that the log file can get put into the actual database, the database crashes. And when that happens, it can't be certain that there's not going to be new records inserted in the database. And so what it does is it gives us, and the default is 1,000, blank 1,000 entries, so that when the database starts back up and that log file is processed, we don't have 2 IDs of 4. So there's a gap in there that can backfill when it processes that log file. So there's a lot more complexity there, and there's a lot more reasons for it, but that's the basics. So this is a security or safety thing with SQL Server that's doing to make sure that you don't have duplicate IDs. The ID number does not matter. Ignore it. Stop thinking about it. Stop worrying about it. So this, you don't have to go back and move things around or recover those IDs. You just don't. So the only thing that matters really is that it's sequential, meaning that you don't have IDs that are all over the place. You have, they go in order. That's the only thing that matters for SQL Server, is they're stored on disk in the order of their ID. And that is really helpful because of the fact that it makes lookup that much faster. There's a reason why GUIDs are nice, but they're slower. And the reason why they're slower is because when you store on disk, you store it in order. And so it has to shuffle things around every time you do an insert. Whole nother topic, but this just means nothing. Don't worry about the gap here. It just means the server shut down. That's going to happen on dev server especially, because I'm shutting my container down all the time. So we have an insert, but let's do another insert. And let's do an insert where I'm going to insert null. I'm going to insert empty string. I'm going to set a priority of 0. Execute. This fails, right? It says, oh, we got a failure. If we keep running this, then we're going to get a 500 error, which isn't what we want. But let's put in here a value, execute again. This time it worked, 204. So empty strings work, priority of 0 worked. If we come up here and execute this, we can see now that, first of all, 108 was skipped because it failed. But then 109, we have empty title, empty description, and priority of 0. That's not a valid priority. That's not a valid title or description. So we need to fix that. We need to put some validation in. And that's why we have that validation option I showed you. Okay, so let's add the validation to this. so that we can be sure, let's close this out. We can be sure that we don't put data in that's incorrect. Now, to do this, the first thing in a minimal API is, let's do it after problem details. We say builder.services.addValidation. Simple enough. And why are we... Oh. It still thinks I'm running, which I'm not. That's interesting. Let's try this again. Gotta love when a program goes a little haywire. Okay. Should be good. So we have our add validation statement in our services. So that's adding to dependency injection. Now we can do validation on, and let's collapse this one down too, on our post. But how do we do that? Well, first come down to our record, and this is very important. This public, you don't have to have in order to use this record with this post command. It will work. But what will not happen is validation. In order for validation to happen, you have to mark this as public. It has to be accessible outside of your class. So make sure it's marked as a public record. Now, I'm not positive why this is. I think it has to do with the fact that if you be exposing data from inside the record, if you have a validation message, I think is the reason. I'm not positive. But what we're going to do is I'm going to put these on their own lines. Otherwise, it's going to scroll quite a bit. And I'm going to say, let's mark this is required. Okay. And we'll do the same thing for description. Now, I could also put the, I should just do this, min length of 1. So now, I notice I can just put a comma, and that puts 2 different modifiers on here, or attributes on our title and description. So now both of them have a minimum length of 1, and they're required. And then the priority, I'm going to not say it's required because it's not nullable, but I'm going to say a range, and this is going to be 1 to 5, which means the number has to be in that range. Okay. So records, you can do the same validation things that you can with classes. Super helpful. All right, let's run this again. Wait for it to be done. There we go. Service, oh, I haven't changed that over. Let's do that in a minute. But right now I can go to post. Let's try it out. And let's, no title, no description, and priority 0, execute. And it says 400. And it says there's 1 or more validation errors have occurred. The ticket title field is required, the ticket description field is required, and the ticket or the field priority must be between 1 and 5. So now, even if I put test and test here and I execute, we still get a 400, but now it just says the field priority must be between 1 and 5. So it knows that this needs to be, we can't say 6 here because it's still an error. But if we say 4 and execute, then we get a 204. We're good. And if we actually try this out, execute, we will see down here that notice there's no skipped ones because the validation stopped before it even tried. And we now see that the only one we inserted since we put validation on is the 1010 version, which has a priority of 4 and a ticket title and description of test. So that's how you add validation to your app. So let's stop this. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do one more modification, and that is under properties, launch settings. We're in an HTTPS profile. I'm going to say launch URL, and we're going to say /Swagger. Saving this. This is what's going to change where we go when we launch our API. So now if we come back over here and hit run, this will save us some time since we're working on the API. I should have done it earlier, but I keep forgetting. This is what I do in all my projects. But notice now the URL says /Swagger. So I click this, it goes right to Swagger. Just saves us a whole bunch of time. Okay, so that's it. That's how we do a post command inside of our API. Once you have the Dapper set up, this is super simple. Store procedure name, pass in your model. Done. It inserts that data. Same with our get command. You pass in the store procedure and the value. Done. Like this is all it takes. And so now notice we only return no content, but because we have validation on, the validation problem takes care of returning that that message. And we are really scrolling right now. So let's change that. Let's put this on a new line, indent it, and we'll put this on the same line, I think. We can indent it one more, but let's indent it one more. Okay, so there we go. So there is our post command. Again, you can get the source code for this in the description if you'd like a copy of it. Thanks for watching, and as always, I am Tim Corey.